In the 1820s, the frontier of Upper Canada was unforgiving. For James Lake Jr., reality arrived with the sudden slip and bite of an axe. The deep gash in his leg quickly turned gangrenous, leaving him with a brutal, immediate choice. Medical care in the backwoods meant crude surgery. His neighbors filled him with whiskey and, lacking any anesthetic, amputated his infected leg completely to save his life. Surviving the surgery was only the beginning. Shortly after losing his limb, his second wife Elizabeth died in 1822. James was suddenly a physically disabled widower, destitute, with 6 young children to feed in an environment that demanded intense physical labor. The poverty became so acute that James had to make a horrific decision. To keep them from starving, he handed 2 of his children over to his sister to raise. You have a grieving, disabled man at the absolute edge of survival, his family fractured by extreme poverty. Yet decades later, this same man would lead a massive caravan across the American plains. James Lake Jr.'s life isn't a single clean move west. It is a repetitive, grueling cycle of building a life, losing it all, and finding the physical and mental capacity to start again from zero. The rebuild started in 1825. James secured a land grant from the Crown in Camden, Upper Canada. There, a man named Brigham Young helped him construct a new log house. Through that connection, James met Philomelia Smith. She was a widow who had been raising 5 children on her own since losing her husband. They married soon after. You take James's 6 children, combine them with Philomelia's 5, and instantly they are managing a family of 11 kids. Over the next decades, they had 10 more children together, pushing the total to 21. They engineered a massive, self-sustaining labor force and support system. In the unforgiving frontier, a large, tightly knit family was the most effective insurance policy against total ruin. In 1832, the family embraced the Mormon faith. This decision triggered a decades-long cycle of displacement, forcing them to repeatedly abandon what they had built. They first migrated south to Kirtland, Ohio. James and his sons immediately went to work gathering materials and helping construct this structure, the religion's first major temple. Forced out of Ohio, the family fled west to Nauvoo, Illinois, where James once again committed his time to building up the city and a second temple. This illustration captures their breaking point. Driven out of Nauvoo in the dead of winter, the family had to flee across the frozen Mississippi River, risking heavy wagons and livestock on the ice to escape. They arrived at the temporary encampments of Council Bluffs, Iowa, in desperate condition. Despite his own missing leg and massive family, James was appointed as a bishop, tasked with caring for the hundreds of displaced widows and orphans. Throughout this relentless geographic shuffling, his response remained consistent. Every time he was forced to relocate, he immediately started building infrastructure for the people around him. That winter in Council Bluffs pushed the camp to the brink of starvation. James's young children survived by scurrying over frozen, harvested fields, scavenging for dropped ears of corn and nubbins. To process that scavenged corn, James engineered an Armstrong mill. He split a log in 2, gouged out a hollow center, bound the halves back together, and used a heavy pestle to physically pound the raw corn into meal. By the spring of 1847, the family was entirely out of resources and unequipped to cross the plains. Instead of attempting the trek they couldn't survive, James strategically pivoted, moving the family south into Missouri to rent land, farm, and generate capital. This data visualization shows the wealth they accumulated over 3 years of labor. By 1850, they had systematically acquired 40 cows, over 100 sheep, 6 yoke of oxen, and 2 heavily loaded wagons. With severe poverty behind them, they returned to Florence, Nebraska. James arrived with such organizational strength and material wealth that he was officially appointed as a captain of 50, leading dozens of families for the final migration. The 1850 caravan faced one final brutal test near the Platte River. A cholera outbreak swept through the camp, killing James's daughter-in-law, though his own daughter managed to survive the infection. He leveraged a crude log mill, farmed rented land in Missouri, financed a massive livestock inventory, and organized a sprawling pioneer company. He navigated his family out of the refugee camps and turned them into a heavily equipped vanguard. The Lake family finally arrived in Salt Lake City in October 1850. Shortly after, they were directed north to Ogden Fort, an empty expanse of sagebrush that James immediately set to work clearing for a new farm. He spent his final decades in Oxford, Idaho, eventually rising to the highly respected ecclesiastical position of patriarch. He lived to the age of 84, passing away in 1874. The sprawling network of descendants he and Philomelia engineered held him in immense reverence. Historical accounts note that their family's love for the one-legged pioneer bordered on absolute adoration. The popular image of the pioneer is often wrapped in the romance of a single heroic wagon ride into the sunset. James Lake Jr.'s story suggests something different, that survival was less about a single journey and more about endurance. The weight of his legacy isn't found in a single trek, but in the exhausting, repetitive willingness to look at the total destruction of his life, pick up his tools, and start building again.